Welcome to Attainable Green. I'm Jess, and today we're going to be talking about cheap versus expensive orchids. Now, if you've been following the houseplant industry, you will know that since the pandemic, a lot of people have been really interested in bringing houseplants to their home, and certain prices for popular plants have been skyrocketing. In the orchid market, I think the growth has been increasing, but it's a little bit slower than the houseplant market overall. For the past 15 to 20 years, I would say that orchids have significantly become cheaper and more widely available. So orchids are no longer as expensive as they used to be. This is primarily due to cloning and tissue culture of orchids, and so they're able to propagate plants on a massive scale. Also, I believe the Netherlands and Taiwan are the biggest exporters of orchids around the world. Because of the sheer volume of plants on the market these days, orchids are way cheaper than they used to be. Depending on the type of orchid grower you are, you can find an orchid within your budget. And obviously, you're not going to be able to get every single plant out there for the price, but you can still buy a plant within your budget. Because of new technology, we're able to grow a lot of things that weren't possible several decades ago. So I'm going to explain a couple of things about what makes an orchid cheaper or more expensive. The first is going to be the maturity or size of the plant. Depending on the species or hybrid that you want, a plant may take 2 years to go from flask to blooming size. For ones that are slower growing, it can take up to 10 years or 15 years for it to bloom its first flower. So obviously, because it takes a lot of time to grow these plants on so that you can see their beautiful flowers, so the price correlates to that growing time. Seedling size plants will be much cheaper than blooming size, and obviously slower growing plants will be a little bit more expensive than fast growing ones. Some examples are Tolumnias and Phalaenopsis can take up to 2 years to become blooming size. However, multifloral Paphiopedilums, like the famous Paphiopedilum rothschildianum, can take up to 10 years for its first blooming. Second, the price of the plant can be dictated by either if a plant is a hybrid or a species or special variety. So a hybrid is a mix of two species crossed together to create a hybrid. And these plants tend to be more robust and easier to grow since it has a little bit more of a flexible range of tolerances. So you can grow them in a wider range of temperatures or watering practices and lighting conditions. So hybrids tend to be a little bit more robust, easier to grow, and therefore they command a cheaper price than a species which may be a little bit finicky and require more specific requirements for it to grow successfully. Next would be the volume or availability of a plant. Certain orchids these days are produced en masse, and they grow hundreds of thousands of them per year, while other varieties may only be growing 50 to 100 plants per year. And that difference in volume significantly impacts the price as well. Obviously, the more that something is grown, the price will be much lower, versus ones that only grow a few per year will be a little bit higher. Once again, Phalaenopsis tend to be much cheaper. On the other side of the spectrum, Phragmipediums or more obscure varieties tend to be a little bit more expensive. Now, there isn't a clear-cut answer on which particular orchids are cheaper and which are more expensive. It's kind of a general understanding of them, and the more you search for orchids, you may realize that a certain genus tends to be a lot cheaper and another genus tends to be more expensive. Now, the third part may be rarity or special characteristics of an orchid that can determine the price of the plant. Once again, if a plant is more available, it tends to be less valued versus one that is harder to find, or it may have a special mutation on the plant. So compared to the standard Phalaenopsis, a plant that may be peloric, which means that it has some sort of mutation, either it mimics the lip or another petal or something like that, that tends to command a higher price. Also, certain variegations that may come through also command a higher price. So these types of distinctions really make the plant a little bit more interesting and a bit more valuable. So those are a few things that I have discovered in determining what makes a plant cheap versus what makes it expensive. Now, if you have something to add in the comments and something that you've noticed, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to follow along on my orchid growing journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!